The funeral was on a Wednesday. By Friday, Diane Crawford was in my kitchen with a real estate appraiser, a business broker, and her lawyer. "Pack your things, Harper," she said, not looking at me while she gestured around my home. "This house, Marcus's medical practice, all of it. It's mine now. I funded his education, I loaned him the startup capital, and now that he's gone, I'm reclaiming my investment." She paused at the doorway to my daughter's room. Emma was 5, still learning what forever meant when adults said Daddy wasn't coming home. "Obviously, I'm not taking the child," Diane said, like Emma was a piece of furniture she was declining. "I raised my kids. I'm done with that chapter." My name is Harper Crawford. I'm 33 years old. Until 2 weeks ago, I lived in Denver, Colorado, in a house that backed up to the foothills, the kind of house with good light and a yard where Emma could chase butterflies. Marcus was a pediatrician. He'd built his practice from nothing. Well, from Diane's $200,000 loan and 7 years of 18-hour days. Crawford Pediatric Care. 4 doctors, 12 staff members, serving 3 neighborhoods on the north side of Denver. He died on a Monday morning, collapsed in the clinic parking lot before his first appointment. Brain aneurysm. The EMTs said it was instant. One moment he was reaching for his coffee, the next he was gone. He was 38 years old. I got the call while making Emma's lunch. Peanut butter, no jelly, crusts cut off. By the time I reached the hospital, there was nothing left to do but sign papers and answer questions I couldn't process. Diane didn't cry at the funeral. She wore black Prada and dark sunglasses and accepted condolences like she was collecting awards. Her younger son, Trevor, stood next to her, looking uncomfortable in a suit that didn't quite fit. Trevor was 32 and had never held a job longer than 9 months. He lived in Diane's guest house in Boulder and spent his days finding himself, which apparently required a surprising amount of his mother's money and very little effort. You need to understand something about Diane Crawford. She wasn't some helpless widow. She'd built a chain of high-end boutiques across Colorado, 5 stores, all successful, all sold for a significant profit 10 years ago. She knew business. She knew numbers. Or she thought she did. Retail is straightforward math. Buy inventory, sell inventory at markup, count the profit. She applied that same logic to Marcus's medical practice, a business she'd never worked in, managing complexities she didn't understand. To Diane, a pediatric practice billing $1.2 million annually was just a cash machine. You bill, you collect, you count. Simple. She'd also treated me from day one like I was a phase Marcus would outgrow. I was a dental hygienist when we met. Not glamorous, not wealthy, not from the right family. Diane once introduced me at a charity gala as Marcus's current situation, while I was standing right there holding his hand. So when she showed up in my kitchen that Friday with her entourage, I shouldn't have been shocked. But grief slows your reflexes. You stand there taking hits you'd normally see coming a mile away. Diane laid out her position like she was presenting a business plan. The practice was built with her money, the house down payment, she'd given us $40,000 8 years ago and mentioned it at every holiday since. In her mind, she was a co-owner of everything Marcus had touched. And now that Marcus was gone, she wanted her investment back, with interest. The only thing she didn't want was Emma. She said it like she was declining dessert at a restaurant. "No thank you, not the child, just the assets." I stood there holding Emma's stuffed rabbit, the purple one Marcus had won at a carnival the summer before, and said nothing. Not because I agreed, but because my brain couldn't process losing my husband and being robbed in the same breath. Trevor wandered upstairs during this speech. I could hear him opening closets, probably calculating which bedroom he'd claim. 3 days later, certified mail arrived. Kenneth Voss, attorney at law. Diane had filed a formal will contest and a creditor's claim against Marcus's estate for the $200,000 loan. This wasn't a family conversation anymore. This was war. And she'd launched it before the flowers on Marcus's grave had even wilted. Part 1. The Battlefield. Before I tell you how I destroyed Diane using her own greed as the weapon, let me ask you something. Have you ever had a family member betray you at your most vulnerable moment? Someone who should have protected you but chose to profit instead? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. Now, back to Diane's attack. Kenneth Voss wasn't an amateur. He filed the will contest on credible grounds, arguing Diane's loan gave her ownership stake in the practice. He also filed a separate creditor's claim for the loan itself, 2 legal fronts simultaneously. Diane was spending $400 an hour on this man, and she wanted blood. But she couldn't wait for the legal system to hand her what she wanted. She decided to start managing her new empire immediately. The week after filing, Diane drove to Crawford Pediatric Care, Marcus's clinic on the north side of Denver, and announced to the staff that she was assuming oversight. There were 7 employees, 3 doctors working under Marcus's supervision, 2 nurses, a receptionist, and Kelly Nguyen, the practice administrator who'd worked with Marcus for 5 years. Diane told her she was the new owner and changes were coming. She demanded Kelly print the practice's revenue reports for the last 3 years. Kelly printed them. Diane studied the top line, $1.2 million in annual billing. She nodded, satisfied, and left. She never asked about expenses, never looked at accounts receivable versus actual collections, never opened the insurance reimbursement files, never asked about malpractice insurance premiums or compliance costs. It's like checking your credit card statement but only looking at your purchases and deciding you're rich. Then, Diane started calling Marcus's patients. One by one, she tracked down their numbers and introduced herself as the new person overseeing their children's care. She had no medical license. She had no authority. She didn't even know which kids had which conditions. But Diane believed confidence and competence were the same thing. Most parents, understandably disturbed by a phone call from their dead pediatrician's mother, transferred to other practices immediately. Diane was systematically destroying the patient base of the very business she was fighting to own. It was like watching someone drill holes in a boat while arguing about who gets to sail it. Then, Trevor happened. A week after Diane's clinic visit, Trevor showed up at my house in Diane's Range Rover with 3 suitcases, an Xbox, and a bag of beef jerky. He walked to the door and announced he was moving into the guest room because, quote, "Mom says the house is basically ours now anyway." He didn't bring sheets, he didn't bring toiletries, he brought a gaming console and snacks. I told him to leave. He refused. I called Denver PD. 2 officers arrived, confirmed the house was in Marcus's name and I was the surviving spouse, and escorted Trevor back to the Range Rover. He left the jerky on my porch. I threw it away. That night, Diane called screaming. Her voice hit frequencies I didn't know were possible outside of a dog whistle factory. She told me I was heartless, cruel, and that Marcus would be disgusted with me for throwing his brother onto the street. I reminded her that Trevor lived in her guest house and had a perfectly good bed there. She hung up on me. Meanwhile, my own people were losing faith. My sister drove down from Fort Collins that weekend and sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Diane had delivered her hostile takeover speech, saying, "Harper, you have to fight this woman." My best friend Jenna called every night with the same message: get a lawyer, get a fighter. Don't let this woman steamroll you. So I hired Patricia Reeves. She came recommended by another doctor in Marcus's medical group, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and the kind of calm authority that made you feel like everything would work out. Patricia had handled estate disputes for 23 years. She reviewed Diane's filings in under an hour and told me it was beatable. The loan had no partnership agreement, no formal terms, nothing in writing giving her equity. The will is clean. We fight, we win, and Diane goes home empty-handed. I told Patricia I needed time to think. That night, after Emma was asleep, I drove to Marcus's clinic. It was almost 10 p.m. The building was dark except for emergency lighting in the hallways. I unlocked Marcus's office with the spare key I'd kept on my keychain and sat at his desk. It still smelled like him, that cedar cologne he'd worn since medical school. I opened the bottom drawer, the deep one where he kept personal files, and behind a stack of old patient charts, I found a sealed envelope. My name was written on the front in Marcus's handwriting, not Harper Crawford, just Harper, with a small heart drawn next to it. I opened it, read what was inside, and sat in that dark office for almost an hour without moving, barely breathing. For the first time since Marcus died, my mind was completely clear. The next morning, I called Patricia. My voice was different, steady, cold, like something had crystallized behind my eyes. "Patricia, I need you to come to my office, today." Let me tell you what was in that envelope, because this is where the story stops being about grief and starts being about strategy. 9 months before he died, Marcus was diagnosed with a cardiac condition. He'd been having chest pain during routine activities, shortness of breath, episodes of irregular heartbeat. His cardiologist at University Hospital gave him the diagnosis, a congenital heart defect that had gone undetected for years. Progressive, manageable, but serious. The kind where your doctor uses phrases like quality of life adjustments while avoiding eye contact. Marcus didn't tell me. He didn't tell Diane. He didn't tell anyone except his life insurance broker and his estate attorney. You need to understand something about Marcus. He was a pediatrician. He spent his entire career protecting children, making plans so families wouldn't fall apart when things went wrong. He wasn't going to let that happen to his own family. So, over those 9 months, while still seeing patients every day, still wearing his white coat, still telling his mother about the practice's growth at Sunday dinners, he quietly arranged the pieces. The envelope contained 3 things. First, a letter, handwritten, dated 6 weeks before he died. He wrote about Emma, how she'd started calling ambulances ambulance, and he never corrected her because it was too perfect. He wrote about our house, how the morning light came through the bedroom window at exactly the right angle. He wrote about the day we met, when I was 24, working at a dental office, and he'd come in with a broken crown. He'd asked me out 3 times before I said yes, because I had a strict policy about not dating patients. The last line, "Don't let her take what matters. She can have the rest. Trust yourself." Not instructions, not a plan, just trust. Marcus knew I'd figure it out once I saw the other 2 items. Second, beneficiary confirmations. Marcus had a life insurance policy, $950,000. He'd taken it out years ago when he first started the practice. The bank required it as collateral for his business loan. Back then, he was young, healthy, passed the medical exam easily. The policy had been in place for 7 years. All Marcus did in his final months was update the beneficiary, changed it to me, Harper Crawford, sole beneficiary. And here's the key. Updating a beneficiary on an existing life insurance policy doesn't require a new medical exam. It's a form. 1 signature, done. That $950,000 would pay directly to me when he died. It would never enter the estate, never go through probate. Diane could not touch it. He'd done the same thing with his retirement accounts. A 401k with $167,000 and an IRA with $73,000. Updated both to name me as beneficiary. Same principle. Named beneficiaries receive funds directly, outside of probate, outside the estate. That's another $240,000 Diane couldn't reach. Total, $1,190,000. Clean, tax-advantaged, legally mine. This isn't some secret loophole. This is basic estate planning that millions of families use. Financial advisors tell you to check beneficiary designations regularly. Marcus didn't forget. He prepared. Third, the real financial picture of Crawford pediatric care. Marcus had prepared a detailed breakdown, typed, organized, complete, of every debt, every liability, every ticking bomb inside his practice. The practice billed $1.2 million annually. That part was true. That's the number Diane had memorized like gospel. But here's what $1.2 million in billing actually meant. $190,000 in outstanding vendor and supplier debts, medical supply companies, lab services, IT support, all unpaid. $220,000 in a pending malpractice settlement, a case Marcus had been dealing with for 18 months, agreed to in principle but waiting for payment. $67,000 in unpaid payroll taxes. The IRS doesn't forgive payroll taxes. They go after responsible parties personally. Office lease, 41 months remaining at $5,800 per month. That's $237,800 in future rent obligations. You can't just walk away from a commercial lease. Equipment leases, $89,000 remaining balance. The equipment, X-ray machines, diagnostic tools, computers, all leased, not owned. The house, worth about $420,000, but Marcus had taken out a $240,000 home equity line of credit 18 months ago to keep the practice afloat during a tough insurance reimbursement period. Combined with the remaining mortgage of $175,000, total debt on the house was $415,000. After closing costs and realtor fees, selling the house would net approximately zero, maybe negative. And Diane's precious $200,000 loan? She was an unsecured creditor, dead last in line, behind the IRS, behind the malpractice plaintiff, behind every vendor with a contract. By the time everyone ahead of her got paid, there'd be nothing left. Diane's loan had evaporated the moment Marcus died. She just didn't know it yet. I sat in Patricia's office and laid it all out. The beneficiary forms, the financial breakdown, the math. My side? $1,190,000 in clean assets. Diane's side? Approximately negative $680,000 in liabilities once you added up every debt and subtracted every real asset. Patricia read through everything twice. She verified the numbers with the documents. She looked at the insurance policy, the retirement confirmations, the practice's debt summary. Then, Patricia Reeves, a woman who'd spent 23 years in estate law without flinching, leaned back in her chair and started laughing. Not polite laughter, real shoulder-shaking laughter, the kind where you have to take off your glasses to wipe your eyes. She looked at me and said 4 words. Marcus was a genius. Then she picked up her pen and started drafting the settlement offer. Patricia contacted Kenneth Voss the following week with an offer that looked like complete surrender. Harper Crawford would relinquish all claims to estate assets, the medical practice, the house, every bank account in Marcus's name. In exchange, she wanted 2 things. Full sole custody of Emma with no visitation rights for Diane. Diane permanently drops the will contest. That's it. Take the empire, leave the child. Kenneth, to his credit, was immediately suspicious. When someone hands you everything without a fight, any good attorney starts looking for the trap. He called Patricia back, said he needed more time. Specifically, he wanted a full forensic audit of the practice's financials. Give me 3 weeks to go through the books properly to verify what we're actually inheriting. He told Diane. Diane said no. And here's the thing, her reasoning was actually logical from her perspective. She'd watched Harper for 8 years, watched a quiet woman who never argued, never pushed back, never raised her voice, who smiled through every passive-aggressive comment at every holiday dinner, who took Diane's $40,000 house gift and said thank you, even though it came with 8 years of reminders. In Diane's mind, Harper was finally doing what Harper always did. Folding. And if you're winning, you don't pause to verify, you collect. She told Kenneth, I've seen the revenue numbers, $1.2 million a year. My son built that with my money. Get me those papers before she changes her mind. Kenneth pushed back hard. He drafted a formal advisory memo, 3 pages, single-spaced, stating due diligence on the practice's financial position is incomplete and strongly recommended Diane wait for a full audit. This is standard legal practice protection. Attorneys do this to cover themselves. Diane read the memo, signed the waiver acknowledging she was proceeding against counsel's recommendation, and told Kenneth to schedule the signing. There was one more thing. Kenneth asked Patricia directly, "Are there any non-estate assets we should know about? Life insurance, retirement accounts with named beneficiaries?" Patricia responded exactly as she should. Non-estate assets are outside of the scope of the settlement. My client has no legal obligation to disclose them. Diane heard this through Kenneth and dismissed it completely. Marcus never mentioned life insurance to her. Why would he have it? He was 38, healthy as far as she knew. Young doctors don't think about life insurance. Except Marcus had been required to buy it 7 years ago by the bank, and Marcus was the kind of man who kept paying premiums on time even when everything else was falling apart. While Diane was busy ignoring her own lawyer, I was building my new life. The insurance company processed my claim in 19 days. $950,000 deposited directly into a new personal account I'd opened at a credit union in Lakewood. No connection to any of Marcus's accounts, no connection to the estate. I initiated the rollover on Marcus's retirement accounts. $167,000 from the 401k and $73,000 from the IRA into accounts in my name only. I started quietly moving things out of the house. Emma's clothes and toys first. Then my books, documents, photo albums, small boxes, nothing dramatic. I found a 3-bedroom townhouse in Highlands Ranch, about 20 minutes south. Good schools, safe neighborhood. Rent was $2,200 a month. I paid 6 months up front without blinking. Meanwhile, Trevor was living his dream. Diane had sent him to manage the practice while the legal process played out, which mostly meant he sat in Marcus's chair, tried to figure out the computer system, and asked Kelly what CPT codes were. On his 4th day, Diane had him sign on to the practice's operating account as a joint account holder so he could handle day-to-day expenses. Trevor signed every document the bank put in front of him without reading a word. He didn't realize he was making himself personally liable for obligations tied to that account. Trevor never read anything that didn't have a respawn button. My sister came down from Fort Collins one more time, sat across from me at my new kitchen table, a simple table from Target that I'd assembled myself, and said, "Harper, you're giving up Marcus's life's work. Are you having a breakdown?" I wanted to tell her everything, show her my bank statements, watch her face when she saw $1,190,000 in clean assets. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not until the papers were signed and sealed and there was no chance of information leaking back to Diane through Colorado's efficient mom gossip network. So I just said, "Trust me, it's going to be okay." She didn't believe me, but she hugged me anyway. The signing was scheduled for a Thursday in early July. The night before, I laid out Emma's clothes for summer camp, packed my bag with the new lease agreement and bank statements showing $1,190,000, and set my alarm for 7 a.m. I climbed into bed and fell asleep within minutes, first time that had happened since Marcus died. Kenneth Voss's office was downtown, 15th floor of a glass tower on 17th Street. Conference room with gray walls, modern furniture, and a coffee machine that produced something technically brown. I arrived at 10 a.m. with Patricia. We took seats on the left side of the table. Diane walked in at 10:05 with Trevor and Kenneth. She was dressed like she was accepting a business award. Full makeup, diamond earrings, a cream silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Trevor wore a new suit. The tags were still attached to the sleeve. Nobody told him. The documents were straightforward. Harper Crawford hereby transfers all claims to the estate of Marcus Crawford, including but not limited to Crawford Pediatric Care, the residential property, and all associated financial accounts, to Diane Crawford, who accepts said assets along with all associated liabilities. In exchange, Diane Crawford relinquishes all custody claims regarding Emma Crawford, and Harper Crawford receives full, sole custody with no visitation rights for Diane Crawford or Trevor Crawford. Patricia made one quiet statement before I signed. For the record, my client is signing voluntarily and wishes to confirm that the opposing party has reviewed and accepted all disclosed liabilities associated with these assets. Kenneth confirmed. Diane didn't even look up. She was already reaching for her pen. I signed. Diane signed. Trevor sat there grinning like he just won the lottery. The whole thing took 11 minutes. As I stood to leave, Diane couldn't resist one last comment. "Maybe now you'll finally learn to stand on your own 2 feet without a Crawford to carry you," she said. Trevor nodded enthusiastically, probably not fully understanding, but agreeing on principle. I picked up my bag, walked out, collected Emma from camp at 3 p.m., and drove to our new townhouse. I made Emma chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs because she firmly believed dinosaur-shaped food tasted better than regular food. And honestly, she might be right. We watched cartoons until bedtime. She fell asleep on the couch with a nugget still in her hand. I carried her to bed, tucked her in, and then I sat on my new kitchen floor with my back against the cabinet. And I breathed. Most peaceful evening I'd had since Marcus died. 3 weeks later, Diane Crawford walked into Crawford Pediatric Care as its legal owner and began running her empire. I wasn't there to see it, but in a city like Denver, word travels fast. Kelly Nguyen still had my number, and Diane herself eventually called me. So here's what happened. Day 1, Diane opened the stack of mail that had been accumulating on Marcus's desk. The 4th envelope was from the IRS, notice of unpaid payroll taxes, $67,000, penalties accruing monthly. Day 3, a phone call from an attorney representing the plaintiff in Marcus's malpractice case. The settlement had been agreed to before Marcus died, $220,000. Payment was overdue. The attorney was polite but firm. We can proceed with payment or proceed with filing against the estate. Your choice. Day 5, the landlord called about the office lease. 41 months remaining, Diane needed to sign a personal guarantee to assume the lease or vacate within 60 days. Diane signed the guarantee without hesitation because in her mind, the practice made $1.2 million and $5,800 a month in rent was nothing. She just committed herself personally to $237,800 in future payments. Day 7, Diane finally tried to access Marcus's practice management software. Without Kelly, who she'd fired the week before for attitude problems, it was chaos. 7 years of medical records, billing codes, insurance claims, none of it made sense. She hired a temp administrator from a staffing agency. The woman sat down, spent 3 hours clicking through files, and then turned to Diane with the expression of someone who just opened a door expecting a closet and found a pit. "Ma'am, are you aware there are over $190,000 in outstanding vendor invoices here, some going back over a year?" Day 10, Kelly Nguyen filed a formal wrongful termination claim. 7 years of service, no notice, no severance. Estimated damages, $35,000. Day 12, 3 more doctors gave notice. They'd found positions at other practices. They were done. Without doctors, there's no practice, just expensive empty rooms. That night, Diane called Kenneth Voss. I don't know what she said, but I can imagine the pitch. Kenneth pulled up his files, read his own advisory memo back to her, reminded her about the waiver she had signed. "I recommended a full audit. You declined. I have documentation." Then Diane called me. I saw her name on my phone screen, watched it ring 4 times. Then I answered. "Harper, you have to help me." Her voice was shaking. "I didn't know. I didn't understand." "You stood in my living room and told me you'd take everything except my daughter. You said you didn't sign up for someone else's child. Do you remember that?" Silence. "I gave you exactly what you asked for. Every single piece of it, every asset, every liability, every debt Marcus left behind. You wanted his empire, now you have it. I hung up. Diane hired a new attorney, someone with fresh eyes, expensive credentials, someone who could find the loophole. The new attorney reviewed everything: the settlement agreement, the signed waiver, Kenneth's advisory memo, the estate filings Patricia had prepared. Every liability had been disclosed. Every debt was in the paperwork. Nothing hidden, nothing fabricated. Harper hadn't lied about anything. She'd simply not volunteered information about assets that were legally hers and legally outside the estate. The new attorney told Diane the truth. You have no case. What you have is an expensive lesson. Diane tried to sell the house. Her realtor ran the numbers. After paying both loans, closing costs, and commission, Diane would owe $8,000 at closing. The house wasn't an asset, it was a debt trap. The IRS didn't negotiate. Payroll tax penalties kept growing. Diane began draining her personal savings, money she'd accumulated over 30 years building and selling her boutiques. She sold her Boulder property first, then her investment portfolio. 2 years of savings, gone in 3 months. And still she wasn't close to covering the practice's total debts. Trevor, who'd been playing doctor's office manager for exactly 17 days before reality hit, suddenly needed to be somewhere else. He tried to remove himself from the practice's bank account. The bank informed him that his signature created joint liability for certain obligations. Trevor hired his own attorney. A 32-year-old man whose mother still paid his cell phone bill hired a lawyer to sue that same mother. Trevor Crawford versus Diane Crawford, filed in Denver County Court, case number and everything. Mother and son, who'd stood in my living room measuring bedrooms and making plans, were now paying separate attorneys to argue against each other. I couldn't have written a better ending. The last time Diane called me, she was crying. Real tears, the kind you can hear through a phone. She said she was losing everything. She said she didn't understand how this happened. She needed help. I listened, didn't interrupt. When she finished, I said, I gave you exactly what you asked for. Every single thing you asked for. Then I hung up. That night, after Emma was asleep,